And somehow that one small no turned into 3 paragraphs. Reasons, context, an apology just in case, a reassurance that you're not a bad person for saying it. Nobody asked for all of that. You did it to yourself automatically before you even noticed you were doing it. This isn't politeness. It isn't being thorough. There's a very specific reason your nervous system doesn't believe a simple no is allowed to stand on its own, and it's exhausting you in ways you've probably stopped noticing. Let's call him Sam. He's 28. A coworker asks him to cover a shift on Saturday. Sam already has plans. Nothing dramatic, just a weekend he wants for himself. He wants to say simply, "I can't this weekend." That's the whole truth. That's all that's actually required. Instead, what comes out is, "I'm so sorry, I actually already have something planned. It's been on the calendar for a while, otherwise I totally would. I know it's a big ask and I feel bad. Is there anyone else who might be able to help? I really wish I could." 4 sentences to communicate what one sentence could have handled. Later that day, a friend asks why he didn't come to a dinner last week. Sam explains, unprompted in detail, his entire emotional state that night, as if declining a dinner requires a fully justified defense. He notices himself doing it mid-sentence and can't quite stop. He's not lying in any of these moments. Every explanation is true, but none of them were necessary. Somewhere along the way, no stopped being a complete sentence for Sam and became something that required a legal case to support it. If you've ever caught yourself justifying a decision nobody challenged or apologizing preemptively for something you haven't even done yet, this pattern has a specific origin, and it's not really about politeness at all. Here's what's actually happening. For a lot of people who over-explain, somewhere earlier in life, a simple no wasn't received as acceptable on its own. Maybe a parent responded to boundaries with disappointment, silence, or subtle withdrawal. Maybe questioning, declining, or disagreeing was met with a demand for justification. Why not? You'd better have a good reason. Don't be difficult about this. In that kind of environment, a child learns fast that a bare answer is risky. An unexplained no invites conflict, disapproval, or emotional distance. But an explained no, padded with context and reasons and reassurance, seems to reduce the risk. The explanation becomes armor, a way of pre-negotiating the other person's reaction before it happens. Over time, this becomes automatic. Your nervous system stops asking, "Is an explanation actually needed here?" It just runs the old rule. Unexplained boundaries are dangerous, so provide the explanation preemptively every time, regardless of whether the current situation actually calls for it. The habit outlives the danger it was built for. But here's the part almost nobody says out loud. Over-explaining isn't really about the other person understanding you better. It's an attempt to control how they feel about your decision, so you don't have to sit with the discomfort of them possibly feeling disappointed, confused, or upset with you. Each additional sentence is, underneath, a small bid. Please don't be upset with me. Please still think I'm good. Please don't withdraw. This is exhausting for a specific reason. It puts you in charge of managing someone else's emotional reaction to your own simple decisions, which is a job that was never actually yours to do. You end up doing double labor, making the decision and then performing the emotional management of how that decision lands, as if both are your responsibility. There's also a quieter belief underneath for many people that a plain, unexplained answer on its own wouldn't be considered a good enough reason, that you need to earn the right to decline through sufficient justification, rather than simply being allowed to decline because you don't want to do something. This belief rarely gets stated directly, but it runs almost every interaction. This shows up in different forms. There's the person who sends a 3-sentence apology text for arriving 5 minutes late, front-loaded with traffic details and self-criticism, when a simple, "sorry, running a few minutes behind" would have been more than enough. There's the person who, when asked their opinion, immediately follows it with disclaimers. "I could be totally wrong. This is just me, though. Feel free to ignore this," softening a simple thought into something apologetically small. There's the person who explains their reasons for ending a friendship or relationship in exhaustive detail, long after the other person has stopped needing or wanting the explanation, because some part of them still needs to prove the decision was justified. In every version, the surface behavior looks like thoroughness or consideration. Underneath, it's the same quiet belief: my plain answer isn't enough on its own, and I need to build a case to be allowed to have it. Here's the twist most people never consider. The goal isn't to suddenly become blunt or withhold explanations out of principle, swinging to the opposite extreme. That usually just creates a new performance, proving you're not a pushover, instead of actually feeling comfortable with a simple answer. The real shift happens when you start noticing the specific moment an explanation starts and ask yourself one question: am I explaining this because more information is genuinely useful to them, or because I'm trying to manage how they feel about my answer? Most of the time, when you're honest with yourself, it's the second one. This doesn't mean you can never explain yourself. It means the explanation becomes optional information you're offering, rather than a required toll you have to pay before your answer is allowed to count. A simple "I can't make it" is a complete sentence. It doesn't need three more behind it to be valid. So the next time you feel that familiar urge, the extra sentence forming, the reassurance, the preemptive apology, pause for just a moment before you say it. You don't have to make your no heavier than it needs to be. You don't have to earn the right to a simple answer by proving in advance that you're still a good person for giving it. You were taught once that a plain boundary wasn't safe on its own. That was true then, in a specific place, with specific people. It doesn't have to be true here. Your answer is allowed to be complete exactly as it is. Nothing else has to be attached to it for it to count.